What happens when a billion-dollar partnership vanishes overnight? In 2022, Adidas lost Yeezy, a line that made up as much as 8% of its annual sales. This wasn't just any partnership. It was arguably one of the most powerful collaborations in sportswear history, shaping silhouettes like the Yeezy 350, 700, and the Yeezy Slide into modern classics. Most companies would collapse under a financial and cultural hit that size, but Adidas didn't. Instead, they turned the crisis into an opening to rebuild their identity and chart new growth. I'll break down the leadership move, the product play, and the marketing framework that turned things around. As an entrepreneur, you'll want to see how those moves scale to small teams. Because Adidas' survival wasn't about luck. It started with one key question: how do you keep a global company alive when its biggest cultural anchor disappears overnight? The turning point came with leadership. In January 2023, Bjørn Gulden took over as CEO, stepping in at a moment when Adidas was facing one of its worst crises in decades. The Yeezy split wasn't just a cultural blow, it carried a massive financial risk. Analysts estimated an immediate hit of around 1.2 billion euros in potential lost revenue, with operating profits set to decline sharply if unsold Yeezy stock remained stuck in warehouses. For Adidas, the crisis was both emotional and financial, a question of identity and survival. Gulden's reputation preceded him. After leading Puma through a decade-long revival, he arrived at Adidas with a track record of emphasizing sport, product, and decisive action over endless analysis. What set him apart wasn't only his experience, but the urgency he brought right from day one. He completely overhauled the company's priorities, sometimes bringing projects forward by more than a year. For many inside and outside the company, expectations were grim. When brands lose cultural relevance, rebuilding trust with consumers often takes years, sometimes decades. Meanwhile, Adidas employees were watching pallets of Yeezy inventory stack up and feeling the weight of uncertainty. It was the kind of situation where most corporations retreat into layers of control, holding endless meetings and slowing their response. Gulden instead framed hesitation as the real threat. His answer was speed and decentralization. He cut bureaucracy immediately. Decision-making was moved closer to experts rather than funneled through slow approval chains. Designers could move on product iterations faster. Marketers could react to cultural shifts in real time, and retail teams had more freedom to respond locally. This restructuring turned agility from a corporate slogan into a daily reality. Just as important, Gulden reshaped company culture. He recentered the mission around product obsession, reminding every employee that Adidas existed to serve athletes with something they wanted to wear. This alignment wasn't only motivational, it gave clarity at a time when people were distracted by fear and doubt. He also made one striking gesture that put his philosophy into practice. Gulden even gave his personal phone number to Adidas's 60,000 employees, a symbolic but powerful way to cut hierarchy and build direct trust. Think about that for a moment. Many leaders in crisis tighten control and gatekeep information, believing that centralizing power will prevent mistakes. Gulden did the opposite. He built transparency and trust to empower people to act without fear. For a global company, that reversal of instinct is radical, and it worked. The takeaway? Resilience isn't about the plan on paper, it's about the environment you build. Do people feel trusted? Can they act fast? In disruption, speed plus trust often beats bureaucracy, creating a better form of control. Leadership alone wasn't enough, though. Cutting bureaucracy and stabilizing culture gave Adidas breathing room. But survival couldn't come just from internal shifts. It had to show up in the marketplace. Consumers wanted a reason to care again, and while Gulden's leadership re-anchored the company, the question still lingered in the public. Without Yeezy, what would give Adidas cultural momentum again? The answer didn't emerge from something new or experimental, but from a surprising place in Adidas's own past. What made the turnaround tangible wasn't a risky new invention, but a sharper focus on the Samba. Originally designed in the 1950s as an indoor soccer shoe, the Samba had always been part of Adidas's catalog. Steady, familiar, but rarely the centerpiece. For decades it lived in the background, loved by athletes, vintage collectors, and die-hard football fans, while newer lines carried the spotlight. After losing Yeezy, Adidas bet that this quiet classic could deliver more than nostalgia. It could drive the comeback. Bjørn Gulden understood the urgency. Within his first week as CEO, he made what industry outlets later called the 5-day Samba decision. After reviewing Adidas's archives, he chose to scale Samba production almost immediately. That speed mattered. It signaled to the whole organization that product heritage, when matched with decisive action, could fill the cultural and financial gap left behind. The move wasn't just cultural, it had serious commercial weight. Analysts estimated terrace styles, the Samba, Gazelle, and Special, could generate up to 1.5 billion euros in annual sales, nearly the same as Yeezy at its peak. In other words, retro lines weren't just sentimental value, they represented nearly comparable economic firepower. For stakeholders worried about Adidas's future, that data point proved the company wasn't simply patching a hole, it was building a viable replacement revenue engine. And it wasn't just the Samba. The revival created a halo effect across Adidas's terrace lineup. Campus 2000s blew up on TikTok, while Gazelles and Handball Specials found new life through both collaborations and general releases. Even the Special series sold in volumes far beyond its usual collector niche. Together, these silhouettes turned heritage into a billion-euro engine. Part of the shoe's power came from its history. The Samba was deeply tied to terrace culture, a style born on European football terraces of the 70s and 80s, where slim sneakers, track jackets, and casual tailoring became a global subcultural uniform. Later, the silhouette gained another chapter in the 1990s, when musicians like the Gallagher brothers wore them on stage, embedding them into pop culture. By 2022, this blend of sports heritage and music nostalgia created a foundation for Adidas to relaunch the Samba as both timeless and timely. Adidas scaled globally, but with discipline. Gulden didn't simply flood the market with pairs. He expanded production to meet rising demand while controlling distribution of certain colors and collaborations. Limited edition runs with designers like Grace Wales Bonner and Gucci introduced premium interpretations and kept cultural heat alive, but core styles stayed accessible. That balance allowed the Samba to build sustainable momentum. Many companies trip over this balance, either killing excitement with overproduction or missing opportunity by clinging to scarcity. Adidas chose the middle path, and it worked. By mid-2023, the Samba had become one of the most visible sneakers on the planet. Retailers couldn't keep them in stock. Resale platforms showed premiums on classic black and white pairs. From São Paulo to New York to Tokyo, wearers picked it up for different reasons. Minimalists loved its clean lines, fashion insiders followed celebrity endorsements, and older consumers enjoyed its authentic link to the past. In fact, Footwear News named it Shoe of the Year 2023, underscoring just how much cultural and commercial energy was riding on this single silhouette. What made the Samba especially effective was its cross-generational reach. Gen Z discovered it through fashion influencers like Bella Hadid, Kendall Jenner, and Hailey Bieber, who integrated it into everyday looks. Meanwhile, millennials and Gen X reconnected with it through memories of football culture or 90s indie bands. Even parents and kids could wear the same shoe, but interpret it differently. That overlap deepened loyalty and multiplied the impact of word-of-mouth visibility. The lesson for entrepreneurs is straightforward. Your biggest growth driver may already exist in your portfolio. The key is timing, speed, and balance. Adidas didn't just pull the Samba out of an archive. They timed its return to align with rising retro and terrace-inspired trends, produced it fast enough to meet demand, and held back just enough to keep anticipation high. That framework is what transformed a heritage product into a global growth engine. By leaning on the Samba, Adidas built a bridge out of crisis. The shoe wasn't just footwear, it was proof that the brand could make itself relevant again without clinging to a single celebrity-led partnership. But heritage alone can only carry a brand so far. The more difficult question was how to keep momentum alive and build lasting brand energy. That's where Adidas had to reimagine its entire approach to marketing. When your biggest cultural driver disappears, the easy option is to replace them with another famous face. But Adidas didn't go that route. Instead, they built a system designed to create a more sustainable model, an approach rooted in structure rather than celebrity. The backbone of that system was a funnel with 4 connected pillars: brand campaigns, brand moments, category activation, and commercial conversion. Each played a part in pulling people from inspiration to purchase, while also reinforcing Adidas's identity at every step. Brand campaigns delivered global storytelling. Brand moments tied attention to cultural or sporting milestones. Category activation highlighted key product families. Commercial conversion turned that interest into sales at retail and online. What makes the framework real are the campaigns inside it. For brand campaigns, one clear example was "We Gave the World an Original," which celebrated footwear like the Samba and Superstar as foundations of culture. This wasn't hype-driven. It was rooted in heritage and proved Adidas could inspire through its own DNA. For brand moments and purpose work, Adidas launched Move for the Planet. The campaign encouraged people to log physical activity in the Adidas running app, with Adidas donating €1 to Common Goal for every 10 minutes tracked, capped at a total of €1.5 million. In the end, over 173 million minutes of activity were recorded, turning exercise into direct social impact. Both campaigns show how Adidas made abstract pillars tangible through visible consumer action. Just as important was what they didn't do. Adidas refused to repackage Yeezy or crown a single new figurehead. Instead, they diversified. Gucci for luxury, Wales Bonner for cultural credibility, Bad Bunny for street appeal, and Pharrell for creativity. Fear of God Athletics added a performance meets luxury angle, showing how Adidas could spread influence across multiple cultural lanes instead of relying on one star. This diversification extended into sport. Rather than relying on a single athlete, Adidas leaned on broader athlete sponsorships and federation partnerships, from World Cup teams to track and field icons. None carried the entire brand, but together they generated consistent global visibility. This spread reduced vulnerability and embedded credibility across multiple segments: football, running, basketball, and beyond. The lesson here: don't rely on a single client, partner, or figurehead. Build systems and networks so no one point of failure can break your growth. By tightening campaigns, activating diverse collaborations, embedding purpose with measurable initiatives, and creating a linked funnel from brand story to sales, Adidas reduced dependency risk. They didn't just find a replacement for Yeezy. They built a structure resilient enough to grow without tying their fate to any one person. And once that structure began delivering results, the company could see more than brand recovery. It could see the makings of stable financial growth. That resilience didn't come from luck. It came from turning disruption into a chance to rebuild foundations that were stronger than before. Adidas proved that disruption can be a catalyst for identity and growth. Treat every setback as a chance to reset and come back stronger. If you want more breakdowns of the strategies behind the world's biggest brands, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.